Welcome to Shadow Fable. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy stories that creep beneath the surface. Slow, unsettling tales designed to make your mind wander just before sleep. Tonight's story begins in a hospital, but not the kind you'd want to be admitted to. Room 13 wasn't on the blueprints. They'd sealed that part of the psychiatric wing years ago, after the flood. Or that's what they told us anyway. No patients, no lights, just faded walls, the hum of flickering ceiling panels, and a door that nobody used. At least, not anymore. I was a night shift nurse just trying to keep my life together. Newly single, too old to start over, too young to give up. 42 and exhausted most days. The night shift at Merrill Ridge State Hospital wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept things quiet. Until the supervisor called me into his office last Monday. "We need you to keep an eye on a long-term patient," he said, glancing at a clipboard like he hadn't just dropped a strange bomb. "Room 13, I blinked. "That wing's been closed for years." He didn't answer directly. "It's a one-night assignment. You'll just observe, nothing more." No explanation, no file, no backstory, just a name scribbled on a transfer form. Subject A. No visitors. I should have said no. I knew better. But I've always had that reflex, the one where you nod, agree, and ask questions later. The hallway to room 13 had a different temperature. I swear the air grew colder the farther I walked. The other wings had tile floors, freshly waxed. This one had warped linoleum, the kind that bubbled and creaked underfoot. As I passed room 9, then 10, then 11, I started hearing something. Scratching. Not loud, just subtle enough to raise the hairs on your arms. When I finally reached room 13, the door was already open. The room was dim. The only light came from a single desk lamp on the far wall. The patient sat hunched beneath it, back facing me, scribbling something furiously into a notebook. She looked average, older than me, probably in her 60s, gray wisps of hair tied into a low knot, thin frame, pale, as though she hadn't left the room in years. I cleared my throat softly. "Ms." She didn't respond, just kept writing. I walked closer, trying not to startle her. "I'm Nurse Ellen. I'll be here with you tonight. Just observing, that's all." Still nothing. But I saw her hand tremble as she kept writing. Scribble, scribble, scribble. She filled page after page without looking up. Then I saw the handwriting. It was mine. I froze. My name, Ellen Rowe, was written at the top of every page in precise loops I instantly recognized. Slanted letters. A small heart over the lowercase I, the same way I'd written it since high school. "Where did you get this?" I asked. She stopped writing. Didn't look up, didn't speak. Just slowly slid the notebook toward me. I picked it up. The pages weren't just my handwriting, they were memories. My memories. June 8th, I dropped the mug and lied about it. Said the cat knocked it over. I was 20. I don't know why I lied. October 14th, I stood outside Mom's bedroom and listened to her cry, didn't go in, regret it. January 3rd, he left me. I pretended not to care. Word for word. Some of these thoughts I'd never said aloud. Some I'd never even written down. I backed away, my palms started to sweat. This wasn't just strange, it was impossible. The woman finally turned her head toward me. Her face was blank, eyes too wide, lips moving soundlessly. "Who told you these things?" I demanded. "Why are you writing this?" Her lips kept moving, but no words came. Then she smiled, not cruelly, not kindly, just emptily. I stayed for the rest of the shift. What else could I do? She didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't move from that chair, just wrote and wrote and wrote. Around 3:17 a.m., I took a photo of the notebook when she wasn't looking. I had to prove I wasn't going crazy. But the next morning when I checked my phone, the photo was gone. In its place, a black screen with one line of text. She only writes what you forget. I called in sick that night. But room 13 stayed with me. The way the hall bent slightly too far left. The buzzing in my ears when I passed it. The way her pen scratched paper like it was carving into something. I tried to explain it to my supervisor. He stared at me for a long time. "There's no patient in room 13, he finally said. I was just there 2 nights ago." He shook his head. "That wing was condemned. Flood damage, no power. The doors padlocked, always has been." I laughed. It came out high-pitched, nervous. "Is this a joke?" He pulled open a drawer and dropped a key on the desk. "See for yourself. Just be careful." So that night, like a fool, like a moth to a flame, I went back. The hallway was darker. The buzzing overhead lights had gone silent. Only the glow from my phone kept me steady as I walked past the numbered rooms. Room 13 was locked. I fumbled with the key, heart hammering. Click. Inside, nothing. No desk lamp, no woman, no notebook. Just a dusty, empty room with peeling paint and water-stained walls. No furniture, no sign anyone had been there in years. Except there was something on the floor. A single sheet of paper. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was a journal entry, in my handwriting. One I hadn't written yet. March 17th, returned to the room. Found nothing. Felt the panic settle in my chest like a stone. Like I'd been erased one memory at a time, and she was saving the rest for later. I dropped it and backed out. That should have been the end of it. But every night since, something new has appeared. In my apartment, on the bathroom mirror, on the fridge, inside my purse, little notes, scribbled in my handwriting. Memories I've never recorded. Some I wish I could forget. Others, I swear, never happened, until they start to feel real. Like the time I dreamt I drowned as a child. I'd never had that memory, but now I can't shake the smell of river water in my dreams. Or the time I supposedly broke my sister's wrist in a fight. I don't even have a sister, but when I look at the photo on my nightstand, there's someone new standing beside me in it. A girl with dark eyes and a cast on her arm. And her face looks familiar. Too familiar. I've stopped trusting my memories. Some days I wake up and the apartment feels off, like a painting slightly askew. Familiar, but not quite right. The coffee tastes too sweet. My cat, Daisy, stares at me like she's waiting for someone else to come through the door. And every night I find another note, taped to the back of the TV, folded neatly inside my pillowcase, slipped into my coat pocket, one I hadn't worn since last winter. They're always written in the same looping, unmistakable script. Mine. But the content keeps getting worse. April 2nd, you forgot what you did at the lake. You wanted to forget. She remembers. April 4th, you were never supposed to leave her. April 6th, do you still think your name is Ellen? I've started keeping the notes in a shoebox. At last count, there were 37. I can't bring myself to throw them away. A part of me, a stupid, broken part, thinks maybe they'll stop if I acknowledge them. That maybe I'm being warned. That's the part that keeps me awake. Because even though I know who I am, I've started to feel the slippage. I caught myself writing the wrong date on a form, not just a day or two off, but the wrong year. My reflection hesitated the other night. I moved, and it lagged. Just slightly, like a buffering video. I stared at it until tears blurred my vision. And then, there's the worst part. The dreams. They're not nightmares exactly, more like recollections. Except they don't belong to me. I'm sitting at a desk in a room with yellowed walls and peeling paint. Writing. My hand is thinner, older, veins like blue rivers beneath paper-thin skin. I write for hours, eyes never blinking. My hand aches, but I don't stop. And in the dream, I know I'm her. The woman from room 13. She writes in silence, fueled by some force deeper than reason. She's not trying to remember, she's trying to preserve. And she's writing me into existence, or out of it. I wake drenched in sweat, with ink smudges on my fingers. Yesterday, the shoebox was missing. I tore the apartment apart, found it inside the oven. Every note inside was blank. Just smooth off-white paper, smelling faintly of mildew. But I remember what they said. I remember all of it. I called the hospital this morning, asked for my supervisor. The line was quiet for too long before someone answered. "Ellen Rowe?" the voice said, cautious. "I'm sorry, but she doesn't work here anymore." "No, Wait, what?" "She resigned 3 months ago, after the incident. Who is this?" I hung up. I didn't resign. I've been working every shift. My badge still works. My schedule is taped to the fridge. I've been going to work, haven't I? I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages, no calendar events past March. I opened my bank app. No direct deposits in weeks. The last charge on my card was at the diner across from Ridge. Paid in cash. I don't know when the days started blending or if they ever stopped. I don't know how long I've been in this place. I don't even know if it's my place anymore. Tonight, I found another note. This time, it was waiting for me on the inside of my front door, taped at eye level. Only 5 words. "You are not the first." There's someone in the hallway. I haven't opened the door, but I can hear it. Not footsteps, not breathing. Writing. The faint scratch of pen on paper, deliberate and slow. The same sound I heard in room 13. It hasn't stopped. I sit here, afraid to breathe too loudly, afraid the sound will stop and I'll have to face what's behind that door. I want to scream, to run, but there's nowhere to go. I checked every window, every lock, every mirror. They all show something different. Different angles, different versions of the room. Of me. I just watched myself blink twice. In a mirror I wasn't standing near. The lights are dimming now. The hum of the fridge has gone silent. The only thing I can hear is that soft, endless scribble. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Sometimes I wonder if I ever left the hospital, if room 13 isn't a place, but a state, a loop, a story being written over and over until someone gets it right. Maybe I was the nurse, maybe I was the patient, maybe I still am both. Maybe room 13 isn't a room at all. Maybe it's me, and maybe you're next. Tonight, I'll tell you about a place wrapped in silence and sea mist, a town that knows something it will never speak aloud, and what happens when someone dares to listen too closely. When I first arrived in Pine Reach, I thought the fog was charming. It reminded me of an old oil painting I once saw, gray shoreline, gulls wheeling overhead, water lapping gently at black rocks. That kind of melancholy beauty that makes your thoughts go still for a while. I'd just taken early retirement from a 28-year career in city planning. My heart had started skipping beats, literally, and my doctor suggested somewhere quiet. My wife was gone, years ago now, and with no kids or siblings, there was nothing tethering me to the city. So I packed up, sold the house, and headed north. Pine Reach was barely a dot on the map, tucked into the Oregon coastline like it was trying not to be found. It was perfect. The first thing I noticed driving in was how the fog moved, not drifted, moved. It didn't roll like in the movies, soft and aimless. It came in sudden walls like curtains being drawn. You'd be driving along, sun still peeking through the trees, and then white, dense and soundless, a complete sensory shift. My realtor, a narrow woman named Diane who wore practical hiking boots and always smelled faintly of lemon, gave me a quick orientation when I arrived. The house was an old fisherman's cottage, restored, with a crooked porch and windows that stuck if you didn't yank them just right. "Lovely little town," she said, thumbing through a folder of paperwork. "Quiet, respectful folks. One thing, though." She looked up at me, eyes flat but firm. "When the fog reaches the ground, don't go outside, not even to the porch. Just stay in. It's just a local thing. Tradition." I waited for a wink, a smile, something that said, "Just kidding." It never came. Instead, she patted the folder, handed me the keys, and left. I stood there for a long moment on the porch, watching the gray wall of mist slide along the trees just down the road. It didn't reach the ground that day. Not quite. I fell into a routine quickly. Mornings started with coffee on the porch if it was clear, reading the newspaper the postman kindly dropped off. Afternoons, I'd wander the shoreline trails, take photographs, pick up driftwood. Evenings were for books or tinkering with a model ship I never seemed to finish. The people of Pine Reach were pleasant, if distant. No one asked why I was there or where I'd come from. They offered a nod, a word or two, then went about their business. But they all knew about the fog. Every home had thick blackout curtains. Every door had 3 separate locks. Hardware stores sold heavy-duty weather stripping, like it was a seasonal essential. I even saw one woman pulling her dog inside with such urgency when a fog patch slid across her yard. You'd have thought it was wildfire. I asked an old man in the bakery once, "Why?" He looked over his shoulder, then at me. "You're new," he said flatly. "Best keep your head down, friend." It was 2 weeks in when the fog first touched the ground. I was upstairs reading. The room went dim, fast, like a light had gone out. I looked outside. The trees had vanished. The grass was a blurry smear. Mist crept around the base of the porch steps like spilled milk sliding under a door, and then something else. A pressure. Subtle at first. Not in my ears or chest, but somewhere inside. Like someone had walked into the room behind me and was just standing there, silently. I turned, half expecting to see a figure. Nothing. The pressure didn't go away. It stayed for exactly 23 minutes, long enough for me to watch the clock. Then the fog lifted, and the feeling left with it. The next day, I asked around. Most people brushed me off, but a woman at the general store, white-haired, sharp-eyed, told me something that's haunted me since. "Don't look at them," she whispered, double-bagging my groceries. "They'll look back." When I asked who, she shook her head and wouldn't answer. I didn't sleep well that night. The thing is, I'm not a superstitious man. I believe in weather patterns and atmospheric pressure and weird coastal currents. But even science has its limits, because the fog came back. And this time, I heard something. It started faint, like wind through tall grass. But it wasn't windy. Then footsteps. Soft, padded, like someone walking barefoot on wet wood. They circled the house, once, twice. I peered through the window. Nothing. But the pressure returned stronger now, like static behind my eyes. Then the back door creaked. I hadn't locked it. I stood at the top of the stairs holding my breath, listening to the click of the latch moving. My feet refused to move. I kept telling myself it was the wind, the moisture, wood expanding. But the door clicked again, louder, like it was opening. Still no sound of footsteps. Just silence, dense, unnatural silence. I backed into the bedroom, locked the door, sat on the bed with the model ship in my hands. Something to do, something real. After what felt like hours, the pressure eased. The next morning, the door was shut tight. Nothing broken, no sign of entry, but the floor just inside was wet, perfect bare footprints, leading halfway to the kitchen and stopping. I cleaned the footprints with trembling hands. The floorboards creaked as I moved, like the house remembered something I didn't. That afternoon, I drove down to the sheriff's office. There was only one deputy on duty, a younger guy named Trent with sunburned cheeks and a sleepy demeanor. I told him what I'd seen, or thought I'd seen. He didn't write anything down, just nodded slowly and offered a tight-lipped smile. "You locked the door after that?" he asked. "I did." "Then you're fine," he said, standing to signal the end of the conversation. "Just don't open it when the fog comes and keep your curtains shut." There was that tone again, like everyone in this town had rehearsed the same tired lines, a kind of unspoken pact. As I was walking out, he added without looking at me, "They're not interested in people who mind their own business." After that, I started watching the fog, timing it, recording how long it stayed. I kept a notebook on my desk and filled it with dates, times, temperature, wind direction, anything I could find. Maybe it was my way of regaining control. Maybe it was obsession. But something had changed. I started seeing silhouettes. At first, it was brief. Just a shape at the edge of the mist, barely visible, still and tall. One night, it stood in my front yard for nearly an hour, never moved. I turned every light off and watched through a crack in the curtain, heart hammering. Then there were more of them. 2, 3, sometimes 4, never close, never touching the house, just watching. I asked Diane, the realtor, if anyone had ever reported break-ins or strange activity during fog nights. She sipped her tea like it was boiling and said, "Some things live better in silence, Mr. Heron." "I don't believe in monsters," I replied. She met my gaze for the first time. Neither did I, until Pine Reach. One night, around 2:30 a.m., the fog rolled in thicker than I'd ever seen. It covered the windows like frost. I couldn't see my hand 6 inches past the glass. The house groaned like it was under pressure, and then a knock. Just one, clean and clear. From the back door, then another, front door, then the windows. It wasn't frantic, it was rhythmic, like they were making sure I knew they were there. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my flashlight. It rolled across the floor and stopped at the base of the stairs. I picked it up and backed into the bedroom, locked the door, and slid the dresser in front of it for good measure. Outside, the knock stopped. Then the whispering began. It didn't come from one direction. It came from everywhere. Not loud, but layered, like multiple voices whispering just below hearing level, speaking in unison but out of sync. I couldn't make out the words, but I could feel them, crawling under my skin like tiny insects. I put my hands over my ears. That didn't help. And then, just as suddenly as it came, it all vanished. Light returned to the window, the fog lifted, but something had changed. I no longer felt alone in the house, even during the day. Doors clicked shut when I wasn't near them. Cold spots lingered in corners. The shadows in the hallway seemed thicker than they should be. And I began dreaming. Always the same. I'm walking through the fog, barefoot. I can't see, but I know I'm not alone. There are shapes around me, just out of reach, whispering. I'm looking for something, or someone. I call out, but I have no voice. Eventually, I find a house. My house. But it's wrong. Bigger inside, stretched and warped. I walk through the halls until I find a door made of black wood. It's locked. And I always wake up just before I open it. One morning, I woke to find the notebook gone. The one with all the fog notes. I searched everywhere. Nothing. Later that day, I found it lying on the grass by the tree line, open, pages torn, words smeared like someone had dipped their fingers in the ink. That was the same day the phone started ringing. I didn't even have a landline. The calls came at night. Always the same time, 1:44 a.m., just one ring. Then silence. No number. Just unknown. I stopped answering. But the whispers started coming through the phone. Not when it rang, just randomly, when I'd be sitting on the couch or lying in bed. A faint electronic hum followed by static. And then that layered whispering again, like 100 mouths just behind a veil. The pressure returned. Stronger, more persistent. Something was closing in. I decided I had to leave. I packed that night, threw everything I could into the car, left the rest. I didn't care. I'd drive until I hit sunlight and cell service and people who looked you in the eye when they spoke. But when I got in the car, the fog was already back, thick as milk. My headlights barely cut 2 feet ahead. I could see the trees twitching, the road disappearing into white. I drove anyway, and after 20 minutes, I was back at my driveway. I hadn't turned, I hadn't looped. The road had folded. I sat in the car for a long time, engine running, hands clenched on the wheel. The fog pressed in from all sides, thick and steady, as if the world beyond had simply ceased to exist. My pulse throbbed in my ears. I tried again, turned the car around, took a different path, one I hadn't driven before, a back road that looked barely used, covered in pine needles and stray gravel, the kind of road that should eventually connect to something. After 10 minutes of slow crawling, my porch lights appeared ahead of me. Same trees, same rusted mailbox, same crooked mailbox flag I never fixed. I killed the engine, sat there staring. And then I saw them. Figures. 5, maybe 6. Standing at the edge of the fog just beyond my front yard, perfectly still. Tall and thin, like telephone poles. No faces I could see. No movement. Except their heads turned when I stepped out of the car. Not fast, not robotic. Slow, measured. Like they were finally acknowledging me. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even go back inside. I sat in the car with the doors locked and the windows fogging up, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to sanity. The figures didn't move. They just watched. By dawn, they were gone, and the road finally worked again. But I didn't leave, not then, because I had one question that needed answering. Why here? Why Pine Reach? Why this fog? I started asking again. I stopped people in town, pushed harder, Most just avoided me. A few told me to pray. One woman cried when I asked about the fog and refused to speak. But someone, an old lighthouse keeper named Marlin, finally broke. He invited me to his shack on the cliffs, a place with yellowed maps, tangled ropes, and the smell of brine soaked into the floorboards. "You want to know the truth?" he asked, voice low and rough. "I need to," I said. He poured 2 mugs of strong black coffee and stared out the cracked window for a long while before speaking. "They're not ghosts, not demons either. They're echoes." "Echoes of what?" "Us," he said simply, "or something close to it. The fog, it's like a skin, thin. Something watches through it. And when it likes what it sees, it tries to remember, tries to copy." I swallowed hard. "And when it remembers too well?" Marlin turned, eyes hollow. "Then it doesn't need you anymore." That night, I dreamed again. Same fog. Same door of black wood. Only this time, it was open. Inside, a copy of me stood, facing away, silent. Its hands twitched, and when it turned, its face was almost mine. But the eyes were all wrong. I woke up gasping, cold sweat, bare feet on the hardwood, heart punching my ribs like it wanted out. I went to the mirror, looked, and for one small second, just a blink. My reflection didn't move when I did. That was 3 days ago. I don't go outside anymore. The fog doesn't just visit now, it lingers. Hours, sometimes full days. I see the shapes more often. They stand closer now, at the edge of the windows, at the porch, at the glass of the back door, watching, waiting. The whispering has changed too. Louder, almost words. I think they're saying my name. Sometimes I hear footsteps in the attic, or the crawl space, or behind the closet wall. But when I check, there's only the fog. I don't know how much longer I have. The pressure is constant now, like the house is underwater, like I'm breathing in someone else's thoughts. They're remembering me. Every detail, every habit, every fear, and when they've remembered enough, they'll come inside, not with force, not with screams, just a knock. And if I open the door, if I so much as look at them, I think I'll see myself smiling back, and I won't be the one standing there anymore. Tonight's story is about a man seeking help, only to discover that some answers shouldn't be found. Now, dim the lights and listen closely. I started therapy because I couldn't sleep. Not in the dramatic, I'm haunted by ghosts way, more like my mind had turned into a carousel that wouldn't stop spinning, even at 3 a.m. Thoughts about bills, my ex-wife, whether I locked the front door, whether I really locked the front door. I was tired in a way that caffeine couldn't touch anymore. Dr. Halverson came highly recommended. Late 50s, silver hair that made her look both wise and faintly intimidating. Her office was quiet, too quiet, decorated in grays and soft blues like a waiting room that forgot it was supposed to comfort anyone. But I liked her immediately. She didn't ask me to relive my childhood on the first session. She listened, asked questions that made me pause. She got the racing thoughts. She didn't look at me like I was broken, just frayed. In our third session, she mentioned him, a patient she had just like me. "He also finds it hard to sleep," she said, folding her hands over her clipboard. "Same age, same tendency to catastrophize. He used to check the door 6-7 times a night." I smiled. "Sounds familiar." "Very. I call him the Watcher," she said, almost playfully. That name stuck with me. The Watcher. The way she said it sounded off somehow. Like it wasn't a nickname she made up, but one he had insisted on. I didn't think much of it until the next week when she brought him up again. Same soft tone, same curious smile. "He said something interesting yesterday," she mused, tapping her pen against her knee. "He said, 'I think the dark listens when I talk.'" I laughed uneasily. Poetic. She looked at me for a second too long. Yes, very. Weeks went by. The Watcher kept popping up. Not every session, but often enough that I felt like we were sharing therapy space. I'd talk about waking up at 2:17 a.m. with my jaw clenched, and she'd nod and say, "He's mentioned that exact time before, too." A chill climbed up my spine every time she said he. She never used a name, never referred to him as someone she saw before or after me. Just parallel, always present. At first, it felt reassuring, like maybe I wasn't as alone in the storm as I thought. But then came the dream. I was standing in Dr. Halverson's office, but it wasn't her sitting across from me. It was him. I couldn't see his face. Just a pale silhouette, legs crossed, fingers steepled in the same exact way she sat. And he said, in a voice like mine, but distant, "The dark doesn't listen, it remembers." I woke with my nails digging into my palms. I almost canceled my next session, but curiosity won out over fear. "Do you ever talk about me with him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She looked up from her notes. "Why do you ask?" "I mean, if you're telling me about him, maybe you're telling him about me?" Her smile faded. That would be a breach of ethics. I paused. "But you're telling me about him." There was a long silence, a subtle tension in the air, like a held breath. "I suppose I am," she said finally. "But you don't seem to mind." I did, though. I minded a lot. I just didn't say so because part of me still wanted to know what he said next. It got worse after that. I started hearing noises at night, not loud ones, not footsteps or whispers, just a low murmur from inside the walls, like someone talking through insulation. I knew it was probably just pipes, or my imagination. But one night, I pressed my ear to the wall near my bed and froze. It was my therapist's voice. Soft, calm, measured. "And what did you do next?" Then a beat of silence, and another voice, low, rasping, and far too familiar. I watched. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I emailed Dr. Halverson to cancel our session. Told her I needed a break. She didn't respond. But a handwritten letter arrived the next day, slid under my apartment door. It read, "You're not alone in this. You never were. Please don't be frightened. Sometimes healing means looking into the dark and letting it look back." No return address, no signature. But I recognized her looping handwriting. Against all logic, I went back. Her office looked the same, but the air felt heavier. She didn't greet me like usual, just gestured to the chair. I sat, waited. "I think," she began slowly, "it's time you met him." My stomach dropped. "What?" She leaned forward. "The Watcher. He's asked about you." I stared at her, my mouth dry. I thought he didn't know about me. Her eyes were very calm, too calm. "He knows now." Then she stood, walked to the corner of the room and opened a door I'd never noticed. Not a closet, it looked more like a narrow hallway, black as pitch beyond the threshold. "I've never invited a patient through here," she said, almost reverently. "But I think you're ready." "Ready for what?" Her smile was kind. to understand what you've always known. I stood, my legs felt wooden. Something primal in me screamed not to move, not to go through that door. But the carousel in my mind, the endless spinning of what-ifs and maybes, had slowed. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. So I stepped forward, and the door closed behind me. The door shut with a soft click behind me, though it sounded impossibly loud in the hush of whatever space I had just entered. I blinked, waiting for my eyes to adjust, but they didn't. The dark here wasn't just absence of light. It felt full, like a presence in itself, brushing lightly against my skin. I reached out and found walls on either side, narrow and cold. Not smooth, but lined with something textured, like peeling wallpaper or fabric-covered insulation. The air smelled faintly of old books and soil. I moved forward slowly, guided only by the thin hum beneath my feet, like electricity flowing through the floor. My fingertips skimmed the walls to orient myself. The hallway didn't turn, but it felt like it did. Angles shifting behind my steps, like a maze that changed only after you walked past it. Then, I heard breathing. Not mine. It was coming from just ahead, low, steady, unhurried. I stopped. The sound stopped too. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded small in the space, smothered. The breathing resumed, closer now. I took another step forward, and another, until I saw him. He wasn't a ghost, he wasn't a monster. He looked like me, but wrong, paler, too still. He sat in a chair, no walls, no furnishings, just a chair suspended in the void. His hands rested on the arms like he'd been waiting for a long, long time. His eyes opened as I approached. They were mine, but dull, glassy, rimmed with sleepless shadows. "You came," he said. His voice was familiar but off in pitch, like a badly tuned recording of myself. "Who are you?" I asked, though I already knew. He tilted his head slightly. "I'm the thought that won't leave. I'm the hour you always wake up. I'm the thing you tried to bury in therapy, but your therapist kept watering." My throat tightened. "Why?" I whispered. "Why me?" "Because I watched you break," he said. "Piece by piece, I saw every crack. Every night you stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing, wondering if it was all pointless." He stood now. He wasn't threatening, but he filled the space somehow. "Dr. Halverson helped you see me. She opened the door, but you built it." I stepped back. "This isn't real." He took a step forward. "It's more real than the stories you tell yourself to stay sane." The space grew colder. My breath fogged in front of me. I heard whispering now, not from him, not from me, but from somewhere deep below. It sounded like my voice again, layered, endless, repeating fragments of every fear I'd ever muttered aloud. "You don't belong here," I said, trying to sound firm. He smiled, and it was sad, almost gentle. "No," he said, "you don't." Then he lifted his hand and pointed behind me. I turned. There was another door, wooden, familiar, with a brass handle. Light leaked out from underneath. Warm light. I didn't remember it being there before. "You can leave," he said, "if you want, but you'll come back." I turned back to him. "Why?" His smile faded. "Because you've met me now, and once you see the shape of your own darkness, you never forget its face." I turned toward the door. My hand trembled as I touched the handle. Behind me, his voice echoed once more, soft, distant, final. "The dark doesn't listen. It remembers." I opened the door and stepped through, back into Dr. Halverson's office. She was seated where she always sat. Her eyes were fixed on me, unblinking. "Well?" she asked, like nothing had happened. "What did you think?" I opened my mouth to speak, but I didn't know how to answer, because the moment I stepped through that door, I started to remember things that never happened. A house I'd never lived in. A woman I'd never married. A funeral I'd never attended, my own. She smiled, as if she could see it unraveling inside me. "Therapy," she said softly, "isn't always about forgetting pain. Sometimes it's about meeting it properly." And then she stood, walked toward that strange door. It was gone. Only smooth wall now, no seams, no hinges. "I think we've made progress," she said. "Let's continue next week." I left the office. I walked home in silence. That night, I stared into the darkness of my apartment for hours. I didn't hear voices. I understood them. And at 2:17 a.m., I woke up, walked to the mirror, and waited. Because I wasn't sure anymore which version of me had come back, or which one was still watching. There's an answering machine sitting in the corner of my bedroom. It's not plugged in. I tell myself that every morning. I look at the empty socket on the wall, the frayed cord lying limp, the blinking red light that shouldn't be blinking. And I say it out loud. It's not plugged in. I say it to remind myself of what should be true, but then I press play. I found the machine 3 weeks ago at a dusty little estate sale on the outskirts of town, the kind you stumble upon on a Sunday afternoon, tucked between old coffee tins and faded military jackets. The house had belonged to a man named Leonard Darr. Died in his sleep. No family, no obituary, the kind of quiet vanishing people don't talk about. The answering machine was buried beneath a pile of yellowed TV guides and a broken cuckoo clock. Old, chunky, 90s era, with a mechanical hiss when it rewound and a speaker that popped before playback. Something about it made me nostalgic. Maybe it reminded me of when voices only came from people you knew, when sound didn't follow you into your pocket and echo into your brain 24/7. It cost me $5. I brought it home, sat it on my dresser, didn't even think to test it. I don't know why. I never expected it to work. But that night, just past 2 a.m., I woke to the click. A mechanical throat clearing. Then a voice, raspy, feminine, whispering like it was leaning against my ear. "Hello? Leo, it's me. You left the porch light on again. You know the moths come in. Call me back, sweetheart. I miss you." I thought I was dreaming, but in the morning I checked the machine. Red light blinking. One new message. I pressed play. Same voice. Same message. It sounded old, tinny, compressed. The kind of voice that came from tapes left in glove compartments too long. I unplugged the machine. The next night, the light blinked again. No plug, no power, just the same dry voice. Same message, but now. The porch light was on. I hadn't turned it on. The first few nights, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it had some kind of battery backup. Maybe it had a capacitor storing charge. Or maybe, and this was the stretch, I'd bought a novelty item someone had rigged with looping audio. But that didn't explain the next message. "Leo, I saw someone in the shed tonight, just standing there, not moving. I thought it was you, but they didn't answer. I'm scared. Please call." There's no shed on my property, never has been. But that night I looked out the window and saw something new in my backyard. A shed, weather-beaten, leaning slightly to one side, padlocked, as if it had always been there and I'd simply forgotten. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, lights off, watching the shed. At 3:17 a.m., a figure walked out of it. Didn't look around, didn't move strangely or make noise, just stood in the middle of my yard, facing the house. I shut the curtains. I didn't look again. The machine blinked in the morning. I didn't want to press play, but my hand moved anyway. He's inside, Leo. He came in. I locked the door, but he's just standing at the end of the hallway. I can't see his face. There's no face, just skin. That night, I nailed my bedroom door shut. I slept with a crowbar in my hand, blankets pulled over my head like I was a kid again. I didn't check the hallway. I didn't want to know. But sometime during the night, I woke to the sound of the crowbar hitting the floor. My hands were empty, and the machine was playing again. No red light, no tape spinning, just the sound of static, then whispering. Dozens of voices all overlapping. Too soft to understand. Too many to count. I ripped the thing off the dresser, threw it into the closet, buried it under shoes. It still played the next night. No power, no speaker. Just my name, repeated softly like a lullaby. Leo, 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 Leo. I'm not Leo. That's what I kept telling myself, over and over. I even checked the receipt from the estate sale. The name on the tag had said property of L. Dar. I looked up public records. Leonard Dar had lived in my neighborhood back in the 80s. Same address, but the house he lived in was bulldozed years ago after a fire. My house was new, built over the ashes. But the shed, the messages, the name. Maybe I was Leo. Maybe I just didn't remember. Or maybe the machine remembered for me. That night, I sat by the machine and waited. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just watched the blinking light steady as a heartbeat. At exactly 2:33 a.m., it blinked once, then stopped. I pressed play. Leo, he left something for you in the crawl space. I didn't open it, I couldn't, but he said you'd understand. I didn't want to look, but I did. The crawl space beneath my house was small, musty, filled with cobwebs and old insulation. But in the center, like it had been placed recently, was a cardboard box, taped shut. On the lid was a photograph, black and white, faded. A woman, maybe 40, curly hair, sad eyes, the same voice from the machine. On the back of the photo, "You forgot me." Inside the box, audio cassettes. Dozens of them, each labeled with a date, spanning nearly 20 years. Most from the 80s and 90s, one from last week. I don't own a cassette player, but the machine, the answering machine, had a tape deck. So I played one, the woman's voice, calm, conversational, like a journal. March 2nd, 1989. He didn't come home again. I waited by the phone. I wanted to call, but I didn't want to hear silence. March 7th. The dreams are back. The man without a face. He sits at the end of my bed. March 18th. He said he'd make me unforgettable, that he'd bury my voice in plastic and wire and send me through time. March 20th. He said Leo would hear me again one day, that Leo would remember. I stopped the tape. I don't remember this woman. I don't remember anyone. I live alone. No family, no long-term relationships. I've never been married, no kids, no siblings. But something about her voice, the sadness in it, felt like a bruise I couldn't see, like I should feel something. But there was a wall between us. I tried burning the box, it wouldn't catch. I soaked it in lighter fluid, tossed in a match. The flames danced for a moment, then fizzled out, like the fire had changed its mind. The tapes were cold to the touch. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the answering machine again, watching the light. No blinking, no sound. Just silence. Until the phone rang. My landline. I hadn't used it in years. I picked up. Silence, then the woman's voice. "I forgive you." Then the line went dead. The next morning, the shed was gone. So was the box. So was the photo. The machine still sits on my dresser. Still not plugged in, but it doesn't blink anymore, doesn't play messages. Until last night. New message. "This isn't Leo's house anymore, it's yours now. You listen well." I didn't sleep after that, not from fear anymore, but from resignation. It's like when you stare into fog too long and it begins to feel familiar. Like it's always been there, wrapping gently around your thoughts. That's how it felt now. Less like something haunting me, more like something I'd always been part of. I was inside it, and maybe I had been for longer than I thought. That morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't call in. I just sat at the kitchen table, listening. The machine didn't make a sound, but I could hear it anyway, not audibly but behind everything else. Beneath the refrigerator hum, beneath the soft ticking of the wall clock, a kind of hush, like a breath being held in another room. Around noon, I left the house for the first time in days. I walked 2 blocks to the library. My goal was simple. Figure out who Leonard Darr really was. Who I really was. The local archives were mostly digitized, but in the back, there were still old microfilm reels and folders full of yellowed newspaper clippings. I asked the clerk if they had anything on Darr. She squinted at me and said, "Again?" I froze. "Sorry?" I asked. She shrugged. "You came in a couple years ago looking for the same thing. About the Darr fire, remember?" I thought it was weird then too, because you had this whole folder of stuff already printed out. I didn't remember that, but she handed me the folder anyway, faded manila. My name, my real name, written in blue ink across the tab. Inside, photocopies of obituaries, fire reports, a grainy black and white picture of the burned house, and a transcript, labeled Voicemail Dump, Darr Residence, 1997. The first line, "Leo, he's in the walls now. I can hear him breathing behind the wires." The rest was a blur. Dozens of entries. Most from the same woman, a few from neighbors. Some were just static. One was a child's voice whispering the alphabet backward. I read them all. I don't know why. I just needed to. When I got home, the machine was gone. I searched the bedroom, the closet, under the bed, even the crawl space again. Nothing. For a moment, I felt relief, like a weight had lifted. Like maybe, just maybe, it had ended. Then the landline rang again. I didn't answer. I let it ring. The voicemail clicked on, then silence. Then my voice. "You shouldn't have stopped listening." I ran. I didn't pack. I didn't lock the door. I just grabbed my coat and keys and drove until the city lights blurred behind me. I stayed in a motel 2 towns over. Clean sheets, no machines, no voices. I didn't sleep. I just sat and stared at the beige wallpaper until dawn. I was about to check out when the clerk handed me a package. "No return address," he said. It was heavy, wrapped in brown paper. Inside Dash, the answering machine, and a cassette tape. No label, just my name, written in blocky, uneven letters. Not quite mine, not quite someone else's. I didn't play it. I still haven't. It sits on the motel dresser, like it always belonged there. But I know what it wants. It wants me to listen. That's all it's ever wanted. And if I do, I don't think I'll come back from whatever I hear. I think I'll become part of it. Part of her, part of Leo, part of the voices. But silence is just another kind of listening, isn't it? So maybe I'll press play. Not tonight, but soon. And if the machine ends up somewhere else, your attic, your garage, a dusty table at an estate sale, don't plug it in. It doesn't need power, it needs memory, and you'll give it that just by listening. Sometimes the most terrifying truths aren't hidden in haunted houses or graveyards, but in the pages of something seemingly harmless. Something like a second-hand journal. The thrift store didn't even have a name. Just a sun-bleached open sign flickering in the dusty front window, and a row of sagging blouses on rusted hangers blocking half the entrance. I wasn't even supposed to be in that part of town. My GPS had glitched, rerouted me off the freeway, and by the time I realized it, I was already 2 turns too deep to bother correcting it. So I pulled over, just for a stretch, a break. And there it was, this crooked little shop wedged between a boarded-up laundromat and a bail bonds office, like it had been dropped there and forgotten. Inside smelled like cracked vinyl and time. You know the smell. Old books, mothballs, maybe a hint of mildew. Not unpleasant, but faintly decayed. I wasn't looking for anything. Maybe a record, something nostalgic. Instead, I found the journal. It was wedged between a broken cuckoo clock and a bin of water-damaged cookbooks. A plain, leather-bound thing, the kind you'd get as a gift and never use. No branding, no price tag. Just smooth, dark brown leather and a faded elastic band holding it shut. I don't know why I picked it up. Actually, I do. It was warm. Not hot, but warmer than it should have been, sitting on a cold metal shelf in a cold little shop. I flipped it open. The handwriting was tight, controlled, with a slight lean to the right. Clean pages, clean ink, no doodles or margin notes. The first entry was dated March 12th. That was the same day I found it. It didn't register right away. I read it out of idle curiosity, expecting grocery lists or dream recaps. Instead, I read this. March 12th. Woke up too early, 4:17 a.m. again. Showered, but the water never really gets hot anymore. Made coffee, spilled a little on the counter. That old stain is starting to look like a map of something. Thought about her again, don't think it'll stop. Drove to work in silence. Past the same woman walking her dog. Black retriever, limp in the left leg. Forgot my lunch on the passenger seat. Ate vending machine crackers again. I froze. Not because it was strange, but because it was exact. That was my morning, word for word. Coffee, stain, the woman with the limping retriever. I'd forgotten my lunch, vending machine crackers. And the time, 4:17 a.m. I read the entry again, slower this time. It wasn't like someone describing a typical day. It was describing my day, down to details I hadn't even consciously noticed until I saw them written out. I turned the page. March 13th. Woke up at 4:17 again. Why always that time? Dreamt of a hallway. Long yellow wallpaper, no doors. Something waiting at the end, but I never reach it. Coffee, but the can was empty. Had to dig through the cabinet for the old backup tin. Tasted like dust. The woman with the dog wasn't there today. Felt off because of it. Traffic heavier than usual. Forgot to answer that email from Janelle again. She'll be annoyed, but won't say anything. She never does. It was tomorrow. Already written. I stood there for I don't know how long. A bell rang somewhere behind me. Someone came in, coughed, left. Still I stood, journal in hand, rereading the second entry over and over. It was specific, not vague, not like a horoscope where anything could apply. It knew things. I bought it for $5. The man at the counter didn't even look at it. He just rang it up and said, "Be careful what you keep." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the journal on my nightstand, glancing at it like it might open on its own. At 4:17 a.m., I woke up. No alarm, no noise, just awake. I stumbled to the kitchen, bleary, reaching for the coffee canister. Empty. I found the old backup tin in the back of the cabinet. The coffee did taste like dust. The woman and the dog weren't on the sidewalk during my drive. I didn't answer Janelle's email. I checked the entry again after each event. Like I needed to prove it to myself. It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. That night, I turned to March 14th, March 14th. Dream again, hallway is longer. Wallpaper peeling now. There's a shadow behind me this time. Don't turn around. Coffee tastes worse today. Didn't finish it. Got a call at work. Number blocked. No one on the line, just breathing. Felt cold all day, even in the sun. Janelle asked if I was okay. Didn't know what to tell her. She looked worried. She never looks worried. Back home now. Something's wrong with the hallway mirror. It's not showing me anymore. Just the hallway behind me. But I'm not in it. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The next day, the dream came again. Longer hallway, the peeling wallpaper. I didn't want to turn around. I knew something was behind me in the dream. That morning, I stared at the coffee but couldn't drink it. The call came at 11:03. Blocked, just breathing. At work, Janelle stopped by my desk. "You all right?" she asked. "You look pale." I said I was fine. That night, I stared into the hallway mirror. I was there. Faint, but there. But behind me in the reflection, nothing. The hallway stretched longer than it really was. I turned to check. It looked normal, but the reflection stayed off. Longer, dimmer. That night, I locked the journal in a drawer. Told myself I wouldn't read March 15th or 16th or anything else. I'd toss it, burn it, just forget it. But at 4:17 a.m., I woke again. This time, I didn't move. I stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched. Like if I just didn't do anything, I could break the cycle. But the coffee tin was still empty. And the dream came back. This time, I saw movement at the far end of the hallway. Not a figure, more like the idea of one. And in the mirror, I wasn't there at all. Just that hallway, stretching endlessly. I couldn't help myself. I opened the drawer. March 15th, didn't want to wake up, felt safer in the dream, even with it there. Coffee untouched, mirror still empty. It's spreading, reflections are wrong now. Computer screen flickered, saw a different desktop background. Mine's not blue, I didn't change it. Janelle isn't speaking anymore. Just watching. At 2:23, the lights flickered. Everything hummed for exactly 7 seconds. I counted. At 6:06 p.m., the front door opened. I didn't hear it, but it was open, just a crack. I slammed the journal shut. It was too detailed. I hadn't done those things yet, but I knew I would, the way the journal told me I would, and worse, if it kept being right. What happened when it reached the end? It stopped at March 18th. That was 5 days away. The last page was torn. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump. I moved the mirror into the garage. I unplugged my phone. Told Janelle I was sick. She didn't answer, just sent back a thumbs up. She always uses full sentences. That wasn't like her. I opened the journal again that evening. The entry had filled itself in. That's not a metaphor. I watched it appear. The ink sank into the paper like it was bleeding up from underneath. And the last line said, "You opened it again. Stop doing that." I dropped the journal, literally dropped it. It hit the hardwood with a dull, unsatisfying thump. That last line, it wasn't a description. It wasn't part of the daily recap. It was talking to me. I stood there, staring at the thing like it might lunge. My heart hammered in my ears, and I realized I was holding my breath. When I finally exhaled, I told myself it's a trick. A weird trick. Heat-sensitive ink, pressure-activated dye, whatever. It's not real. But I didn't pick it up. I left it on the floor that night. I turned every light on in the apartment and slept, well, lay down, on the couch with the TV droning softly in the background. I couldn't bring myself to turn it off. Silence had started to feel dangerous. I didn't dream that night. Or, if I did, I didn't remember it. For the first time in days, I woke up at a normal hour. The sun was already peeking through the blinds. I made tea. Coffee had become hard to trust. I ignored the journal. Stepped around it like you would a spider you're not ready to kill yet. I even threw a dish towel over it. For the rest of the day, I pretended things were normal. Until 6:06 p.m. The front door eased open with an audible click. I was in the kitchen. The sound was faint, almost polite, but the air changed, like a pressure drop before a storm. I crept toward the door, blood cold in my veins. It was open, just a crack. No wind, no draft. I live on the 3rd floor, deadbolt always locked. Always. I nudged it shut, hand trembling, and secured every lock with a double check. Then I turned, slowly, and looked at the towel on the floor. It had shifted, just slightly, like something had brushed past it. I picked it up. The journal sat exactly where I'd left it, but its cover was open just enough to show a sliver of the next page. I didn't want to. I really, really didn't. But I looked. March 16th. Didn't lock the door fast enough. It got a toe in. Just a little. Doesn't need much. The hallway in the mirror is longer now. You won't measure it, but you know. You know it's not the same length as the real one. At 9:43, the static will start. Just a whisper at first. The TV wants to tell you something. Don't let it. Mute it. Burn it. It sees you now. You looked too long. You always look too long. My throat was dry. I turned off the TV, pulled the plug from the wall, covered every mirror in the apartment with towels, jackets, whatever I had. At 9:43, the static started. The unplugged TV turned on, just static, not white noise, not snowy fuzz. It was black. The screen was black, with faint white lines twitching across it, like veins. And the sound, it wasn't static, it was breathing. I turned my back, sat on the floor with my hands over my ears, shaking like a kid waiting out a thunderstorm. The screen didn't turn off until sunrise. That day at work, I didn't speak. I didn't look at Janelle. She didn't look at me either. She'd stopped smiling. Her face was blank now, like a mask she was forgetting to wear. I went home early. The journal was already open. March 17th. No more dreams, just waiting now. The hallway reflection has grown roots. You'll see them if you peek. Don't. Today, the voice will say your name. It will sound like someone you miss. Someone who is dead, or might as well be. Don't answer. Answering makes it stronger. The pages are almost done. You've almost caught up. When you read the last one, you'll remember everything. You'll remember what this was for. Why you're the one who had to find it. That line. Why you are the one who had to find it. It stuck with me. like a shard of glass in my mind. I tried to think. What had I done? What mistake had I made? Was I cursed? Was this karmic, some cosmic punishment? I paced until I was dizzy. I chewed through a pencil. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. And finally, I gave in. March 18th. Today's the last day. You've read every page now, except this one. That means it's time. You've felt it, haven't you? The tug, the way reality's been thinning around the edges, mirrors bleeding into dreams, time folding in on itself. The journal didn't predict your life, it was writing it. You're not the reader, you're the ink. I stopped. That couldn't be the end. There were no instructions, no warnings, just that one line echoing like a cold breath on the back of my neck. You're not the reader, you're the ink. I looked at my hands. They were smudged, not dirt, not paint, ink. A dark, inky smear across my fingertips and wrists, like I'd dipped them in a leaking pen. But it wouldn't wash off. I scrubbed with soap, alcohol, bleach, nothing worked. I went back to the journal and watched. The last page, the one I just read, began to change. The letters twisted, realigned, the words reshaped, until they said this. March 19th. Someone new will find it, someone tired, someone lost. The thrift store will call to them, the journal will be warm, it always is. They'll open it, and the story will begin again. I screamed, loud, broken, animal-like. My chest ached with it. But it didn't stop the letters from settling in place. It didn't stop the final line from appearing. You were never reading the journal. The journal was reading you.